My name is Johnathan Taylor. In 2011, I took one of the longest sniper shots in Marine Corps history. This is everything I'm authorized to tell you. You find yourself always living in an elevated sense of alertness. I personally did suffer from PTSD. You come home, within a week, now you're back at your kitchen table with your family, back home, and you're going right back into daily life. It's a difficult transition. People ask me, how does it feel to shoot someone, or it can't feel good to shoot someone? My answer to that is no, it's not hard to shoot someone at all. It's actually, for me, it's just like shooting a target. The only thing that's different to me is there's a big psychological effect if you miss, and there's a big psychological effect if you wound and they get away. If you take a sniper shot and you miss, and they know they were shot at by a Marine sniper, and you missed them, they can now use that for propaganda. They can feel their chest puffed up. Marine snipers can't shoot. I got shot at by a sniper, he didn't hit me. If you engage an enemy combatant and you wound them and they get away, now you've definitely created an enemy who can now walk around saying, I got shot by a Marine sniper, but I'm fine. But now I'm gonna do everything I can to hunt down and kill Marine snipers. I can confidently say that I've always used my good moral compass to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. And that is, having positive ID of a weapon, or hostile act, hostile intent. Those three things are a must-have if you're going to try to engage anyone. When we would do these missions and we'd have enemy kills and things, it was never talked about. We would come back and the mission was over and, hey, did you kill it? Yeah, I think we killed a couple guys, and then that was it. Unless you actually could physically touch the body, which you never can as a sniper, and also, the Afghan and Iraqi, the people that we were in combat against, they take their bodies immediately and get them out of there. So it's very rare that you even find a body left over. And the way you know you got a confirmed kill is the funeral the next couple of days. Our interpreter would have friends in the market. They would say, hey, you remember that engagement over there when you were in Building 91 and you shot the 5 guys? They just had 5 funerals this week. That's all those guys. Most of the time you try to insert under the cover of darkness. So we insert at night. We insert about usually 1, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. That way you can make your movement to your position, get set in before the sun comes up, get everything staged, get your security set up, make sure you can see what you're trying to observe, get your radio up, make sure you got comm going and those types of things. And then as soon as the sun comes up, you're on alert. You're observing the pattern of life in the area. When you're on a mission, especially a 3-day mission, a lot of times you're usually not in a good, comfortable position for those 3 days because there's not a lot of terrain to work with. A lot of times what we're doing is IED interdiction, so explosive device interdiction. So the bad guys would dig holes on the side of the road, put these bombs in, explosives, and wait for trucks to come and blow them up. So insert yourself into an area to where you can get good eyes on and observe that intersection where multiple IEDs have been in place. There's not a lot of ways to disguise yourself, so what we'd have to do is we would have to dig holes just a few inches down, and then we would take rocks and other stuff around us, bushes, and kind of place them around it so that it didn't look like a giant hole. And we would make a little lane in there so that we could have our gun and our scope and observe, a little observation post. Sometimes we would take occupied houses where people lived in them, families lived in them, because they had a certain window on the second floor that had good eyes on this certain intersection in town we wanted to see. That was always a weird feeling, going into somebody's house that's occupied at 2 in the morning, knocking on the door, knocking on the window, and you just hold your pistol up and be like, we're coming in. And they got no choice. We would tell the family basically, hey, you can move around your house, do your day-to-day business, you just can't leave the confinements of your compound while we're there. After the first couple times doing that, I realized it was very difficult with the language barrier. And we never had an interpreter really assigned to us in Iraq. Afghan, we did a lot. Basically, I wrote out on a notepad like an entry statement for these houses. And it said, hey, we are U.S. Marines. We're going to use your house for a mission. We'll be here no longer than the mission requires. We will treat you with respect. Please treat us with respect. Please bring us any weapons or ammunition or cell phones that you may have. If you have sick or wounded, please let us know. And that was about it. I put that on a piece of paper and had it written in Arabic. I had compassion for the local civilians. It wasn't their fault. You know, they weren't the enemy. So we tried to treat them with as much respect as we could. Being a sniper in a combat situation, you can definitely find yourself in some crazy situations, very dirty situations. One time in particular, we needed to get eyes on this one section of a road, and it was right in the outskirts of this village. And the only covered position that we could get was this, beside this little house, there was a small little sheep shed, really small though. But I had a 4-man team, and we were like, we got nowhere to go. It's 3 in the morning. We've been walking around trying to find a spot. Last thing we could find before the sun came up was that shed. We made a little pile of hay through a hay bale, and when we removed all the hay out of the ground to make us a flat spot where we could lay down and sleep, there was just maggots, just layer after layer, years of sheep and active maggots. We try to get rid of what you can, but there's nothing you can do. That is very common for a sniper mission, to be in those kind of spots. Or even if it's cold, you know, a lot of times, especially if you're near a river, you're trying to observe, you're going to have to be in a really crappy spot that's probably going to get you wet. You don't want to be on the side of the beach. You have to be hidden, so you get in the reeds, you get into like a little wash, and disguise yourself in that. And if you're sitting in that for 2 or 3 days and it's 30, 40 degrees, 20 degrees outside, you know, that can be a toll on you too, take a toll. So it goes from both extremes, to extreme cold to extreme hot, to living in or living in a swamp, or, I mean, it's bad. But anywhere, usually the worst places on earth is where you're going to find the snipers. So the average loadout for a 4-man sniper team during Operation Iraqi Freedom, and this was my team, would have your team leader, your assistant team leader, your radio operator, and your security guy / machine gunner. Everybody would have at least 6 liters plus of water. We would have food to sustain ourselves for 3 to 4 days, and we would have extra of everything. I would have my sniper rifle, and that would be T-boned across my ruck. I would have an M4, and I would also have a pistol. And that's what I would carry. I would carry extra batteries to help the radio guy out, and I would carry extra ammo just in case. I would have at least 6 magazines of ammo on my chest, including 1 or 2 frag grenades, a pyro pop-up for signals, and that's about it for my loadout. For the assistant team leader, very similar loadout. He would carry usually just an M4 and anything that we need as far as like to observe, so binoculars, spotting scope, night vision, those types of things. And then our RTO, our radio guy, he would carry 1 or 2 radios, sometimes 2, always at least 1, with extra batteries, and then his own personal loadout as well. Our machine gunner, our last guy, security guy, he would carry usually a claymore, which is a explosive device. He would also carry his machine gun and extra ammo, and also help carry extra batteries for the radio guy. The average weight of a scout sniper's pack on a mission, a combat mission, is 65 pounds, I would say, average. And then on top of that, you've got your full combat loadout. So you've got your flak jacket with your armor, your magazines, plus all your guns. So it gets really heavy. It's probably 80 to 100 pounds per person that you're carrying. So one of the most, I guess, well-known items in a scout sniper's arsenal is his ghillie suit. You take a pair of utilities, your regular clothes, camo, and you attach netting, you attach burlap, you attach things to conceal yourself and camouflage yourself. When we build a ghillie suit for camouflage, we usually always build it out of your desert uniform, which is your light colors, your light brown, tans. Because once you get that dirty, it starts getting brown, and you can kind of make that blend in any environment. At that point, it's just based off of what environment are you going to be in. You can use the same ghillie suit because you've got your netting on the back, and your burlap, you're able to use that burlap to tie in vegetation. In Afghanistan, if you're out, in the farmlands and near the wadis and the rivers, and then you can use all the tall grasses and things like that and stick them all over you and tie them to you, and you can be very concealed. Very rarely did we wear a ghillie suit in Iraq. We mostly tried to use the terrain to disguise us as much as we could. One thing that gets difficult is if you're on a 3-day mission and you're laying there in a hole in the desert and you've got nothing protecting you from the sun, all your water leaves you very quickly. You get dehydrated very quickly. We'd order tan bed sheets online, have family ship them to us. We'd spray paint them different colors, and then we'd take them and make a mud hole out by our patrol base, and we'd just dump them in the mud, cover them in mud, put them in the creek, get them as dirty as we can, dry them out. And now we've got, it looks like the natural terrain shade cover. So then from there, we could take like just your average tent pole that snaps together. We could take those, we could figure out ways to rig them to maybe give us a little canopy, stick it in the hole, and we can all lay down under it. So now we've got cover from the sun, but we're also covered from people seeing us. You get creative, especially when you get hot. It's not fun laying there, 110 degrees. The most coveted item that we have as a scout sniper is, it's called a hog's tooth. Especially when you're active duty. I think I never took mine off when I was active, and now I only wear it for special occasions basically, but I have mine on today. I mean, basically what it is it's the projectile from a .308 round or bullet. Your hog's tooth is a necklace that every scout sniper gets presented to them when they graduate sniper school. And it's your prized possession. A lot of snipers never take it off, and this is the actual round that we shoot at sniper school and that we train with. You hold it close to your heart. The lore behind it, there's a couple different stories, but the one that I go with and most people go with is, this is the enemy's last round. So this is the round that was meant for you that didn't strike you. As long as you have this round around your neck, you're invincible. So in 2011, I was a sniper team leader. Call sign was Shogun of our platoon. I was a senior sniper in the platoon. We had a very stacked platoon with a lot of experience. Everybody had multiple deployments. That platoon was full of studs. This was in Marja. Afghanistan is in the Helmand province. We had all the area operation to the east of the town. There was a lot of enemy activity, and they would kind of come in and out of Marja through this area. It was like no man's land. Anytime you reached a certain like grid line on the east of the city, you would start getting engaged every time. The reason that area was so protected by the enemy is because that's where they had a lot of their poppy, opium, and marijuana facilities going. So the whole mission was that Afghani army and Afghani police were going to do a north to south clearing operation, methodically locating and burning down marijuana fields, poppy fields, all the way down. What we were assigned to do was to insert 2 or 3 days ahead of the main operation to a building on the most eastern part of the village to observe the pattern of life and report on any activity we've seen in that area. The morning of, as the vehicles were staging to start coming and pushing through, we could see multiple motorcycles full of guys coming in, 2 or 3 guys on each motorcycle. The way they operate in that area, every time they're going for an attack, they wear all black. And as the Afghani army and Afghani police start pushing south and burning out these fields, these enemy guys start coming up and staging in this one little area of this village to start harassing them. My team is reporting on this from a building. They can't see us. They don't know we're there. We're over 2,000 yards away. And we can see what looks like to be weapons, but we can't really tell. At this time, I'm on the spot and scope observing. And my teammate, he is actually on the 50 cal. I'm trying to get him walked on to the distance just in case we need to take a shot. We realize that it's over 2,000 yards, which is past the max effective range of the M107 50 cal. It's a Barrett, the Barrett 50 caliber sniper rifle. Over 2,000, 2,200 is the max effective range. So we knew that this was going to be a difficult shot if we had to take it. We do all the math, we get everything figured out. I'm reporting, I'm telling the CO, I'm like, hey, we've got these guys, they look shady, they're doing something. Haven't got positive ID yet. And he's like, if you get positive ID of any weapons or hostile act, hostile intent, you fire at will. We're getting ready. All of a sudden, here it goes. The guy jumps up on the berm right behind this wall. All of a sudden, we seen RPG clear as day. He shot RPG north towards the Afghan army guys and Afghan police. And I screamed, RPG, he's got an RPG. And then the CO was like, fire. So I told Nixon, he was like, where should I hold? He's like, I've got the elevation maxed out because it's past the max effective. I'm like, just hold as low as you can. Or hold the last mil dot and fire. He took a shot and it hit in the desert. It was like 300 yards short, roughly 300 yards short. Cody was like, yeah, I don't know how to hold to hit him properly because he wasn't a school trained sniper. He was a very good Marine, very good sniper platoon Marine or teammate, but he wasn't a school trained sniper. So I said, okay, let me get on the gun. I did my own calculation in my head and did a mill hold which is, it's a technique that you use to do a hold instead of doing actually cranking the actual data on your scope for elevation. You can just hold. I did my mill hold, and when I determined I was about at the spot I needed to be to take the shot, I was actually looking at a cloud. So my crosshairs were basically holding on a cloud. I couldn't see the guys at all. That's how high I was. And I said, okay, Nixon, I'm about to fire a shot for reference. Tell me where I hit. So I shot, and boom, hit the wall right beside these guys. And it just hits it. You see the flash, just bang. You've got it wherever you're holding, stay there. So they all start kind of walking kind of fast. And as soon as they peeked from the cover of that wall, I had my spot where I was holding right in the middle of the wall, and I dropped an entire nine rounds. Boom, 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 boom. Dust, flash. You couldn't see anything after that. And the reason that there's such a big flash is because the round that we shoot is this is a replica of a 50 caliber sniper round. And the round that we shoot is actually called a Rothfuss round. It is kind of like an explosive tip round. It's got a tungsten penetrator inside of it, and then it's also filled with zirconium particles. Zirconium particles is like incendiary. It lights up, burns. These projectiles have that in them. So it's designed to engage light armored vehicles, really, to shoot into the engine block of a truck and then light on fire. But we use these, it's basically all the rounds we had was Rothfuss rounds. So the good thing about Rothfuss rounds, they do some damage. Secondly, it's easy to see and spot your shots because it explodes, there's a flash. So we could see that flash hitting right in their bodies, and there's nowhere they could go. Called it in, I'm reporting all this right to the CO as it's happening. A few minutes later, there was no more activity from those guys. What we do is a battle damage assessment, right? So a squad of infantry will go out after you make a sniper kill, do an assessment. So they'll look and see if there's any dead bodies or what there was, what shooting positions they were set up in. So they called me on the radio like, hey, yeah, JT, man, we see blood everywhere. There's bloody clothes, bloody blankets, bloody everything. Chunks of flesh. So these guys definitely didn't survive. The distance was 26 meters, over 2,600 yards. I knew it was I knew it was a long engagement. I haven't heard of anybody at that point ever engaging anybody that far. But at the time, you don't think about it as far as a scout sniper is really concerned. There's things that are taboo that people don't like to talk about, longest kills and things like that. That's why I never came out with it for a long time. And I encourage anybody else out there that if they have stories like that, sniper stories, share your stories. People don't know what they don't know, and we're trying to honor the legacy, honor the impact that we've left on the battlefield. Every Marine sniper that'll come out and tell their stories helps us preserve that history. To be a Marine Scout Sniper in the Infantry Battalion, it's voluntary. What they do is just about every year or after every deployment, they'll hold indoctrinations. Basically, it's a tryout. So out of most indocs, say 25 guys show up. And these are probably more than likely they're some of your best, the top tier guys in the Infantry Battalion that come out for these. It all starts with the gear list, the first day at check-in for the indoc. 05 in the morning, everybody lay their stuff out, and if you're missing one item on that list, you pack your stuff and you go home. That's it. Have to have attention to detail. If you can't make attention to detail to try out, you're not going to make it. After that gear list, the guys then pack their rucks up, and we do a physical fitness test. So 3-mile run, max set of pull-ups, and max set of crunches. Do that, as long as they score high first class, then they're good. And we had 2 logs between us, and water jugs, and MREs, and everything that we needed to sustain ours. When I say MREs, I mean that's your food, your box of food. It's meals ready to eat, that's what they're called. They're not very delicious, but they have all the nutrients you need. And they would hike those logs with all their gear out to the training area, which is about 5 miles. And there's the snipers in the platoon, the senior snipers are running around, yelling at you, pulling you out of formation, making you do stuff, getting back in formation, the whole 5 miles. And when you get to the training area, first thing you do is you set up all the tents and set the camp up. And then from there, it's basically nonstop for about 10 days of just hell on earth. They're going to treat you like shit for 10 days straight. Very little sleep, little food, and test all of your infantry knowledge. Out of the 25 in my indoc, 7 finished it without quitting, and they kept 6 of us for the platoon. So it's a pretty high attrition rate for the NDOC alone. But those 6 guys, you're all really tight now because you all just went through something very hellacious together. To this point in my life, that could have been the hardest 10 days that I did. My feet were destroyed, I was bleeding through my boots. It was pretty rough. The next step in your journey, you join a platoon, you get assigned a team, you start feeling your way out in a team, finding your niche, and then once you're ready and your platoon thinks you're ready, they try to get you a spot to sniper school. Those spots are very coveted. The attrition rate for sniper school is about 65% historically. The school altogether is 11 weeks, so it's a long time. You're buddied up with somebody, you got a buddy partner, a shooter spotter, that's how we operate. You're with that guy 24/7, he's attached to your hip. So everywhere you go, you're together. If you fail, he fails. If you're in trouble, he's in trouble. So you better hope you got a good partner. You go right into the first phase, which is land navigation. Land navigation is the first gradable event that can drop you. It's very difficult, and basically what you're doing is you're using a map and a compass, and you're trying to locate a tent stake that's in the ground, and on that stake has a dog tag, and you're trying to find that in a dense wooded swamp area. So it's very difficult to find. You have to find so many in a certain number of hours to be able to say you passed. So that gets a couple of people usually from sniper school off the bat. And then after that, you go into the second phase, where you start learning your marksmanship. Whenever it comes a time that you have to make a shot, it is the most important because you can't miss. Then you go into your field skills. That's when you're learning how to do what we call observation exercises. So basically you lay down and you have your spot and scope, your binos. The instructors place 10 to 12 military items out in the area somewhere, in the field or wherever. You have to lay there in the prone and try to identify those items. It can be as small as a bullet, AP brush that you use to clean your gun with. It can be a magazine clip. It's a skill that you're learning, a skill set to get you used to observing what we call the baseline. The baseline is everything as it is in its natural state, right? So as a sniper, you have to be trained to notice changes in the baseline. The next thing that we learn is called stalking, camouflage and concealment. Stalking is the #1 phase of sniper school that people get dropped for. It's the hardest part. You put your ghillie suit on, you camouflage up, and they take you out to an area. They determine a left lateral limit and a right lateral limit. At one end, they'll park a truck with 2 instructors on the top in chairs with binoculars, and they're observing that whole area. We call it a stalk lane. And all the snipers are in what we call the veg line. The whole purpose of the stalk is to make your way concealed within 200 meters, 200 yards of the observers on the truck, set up a shooting position, and take a well-aimed shot at the truck. We use blanks, and then be able to report and observe on what they're doing. There's walkers out there that are walking around to help the observers try to locate you. Once you make it through stalking, you are kind of at the finish line. It's really yours to lose at this point. Now you're in the mission planning and execution phase. And this phase is where they're actually assembling you into sniper teams and teaching you how to run missions. They'll set up a command post in the office there with the radios. You'll get mission checkpoints, and you'll patrol out to your checkpoints. You'll get observation spots where you're supposed to observe a target. You'll stay out there for a couple of days doing that, reporting information back, just like you would in combat. You'll get compromised sometimes and have to evade or break contact and run 2 miles and set up in another spot. They play with you a lot, play games with you. The whole final phase is just teaching you how to develop and write a 5-paragraph order, we call it, which is basically like your mission plan, how to brief that properly, how to build a terrain model that shows and illustrates what you're doing, and to be able to articulate and brief that to a command. Once you pass that, you're basically good. By then, it's you're at the 11th week. Now you're a basically trained scout sniper. You still don't know everything for sure, but now you know how to at least carry yourself and operate and run a team in a combat zone. A lot of different things go into becoming a good long-range marksman. There's things that you have to take into account that you wouldn't have to take into account for, say, your average hunter or average sport shooter. You have to take into encounter the atmospherics, like what's going on in the air, the barometric pressure, humidity, your temperature. All of these little things affect the bullet's flight, especially if you're doing like high angle type shoots, like shooting from an angle high to low, like shooting off a mountain or building, or shooting low to high. Then you have to start getting into some serious math like the Pythagorean theorem, algebra, different things like that. Also, when you're shooting angles, you're dealing with cosine indicator. It can be a lot to take in to a new sniper. When I went through school, we were doing everything manually. So all of our calculations and our formulas, you have to memorize a lot of formulas. To calculate your wind, there's a certain formula. To calculate your distance to the target, there's a different formula. And what we had is we had these, we called them a sketchbook. In the sketchbook, we had a calculator, we had protractors, we had anything that we needed for marksmanship. We had it all lined out in there. All your dopes was like your elevation for your gun. You know, every gun shoots a little different. So at certain distances, if you want to hit a target at 600 yards, it may be 3.2 that you have to turn on your elevation. His gun, it may be 3.4. To get those, you have to shoot a lot to get your data and collect your data. You have to collect data at different temperatures because your dopes aren't going to be the same at first thing in the morning at 50 degrees as they are in mid-afternoon at 80 degrees. The trajectory of the round is going to be different. It's going to fly different. All those atmospherics start having effect. The modern snipers, everything is computerized and there's a trick for everything and a gadget for everything. So a lot of those skills are fleeting. Those are skills that are very perishable, and if you don't practice them, you will definitely forget them. So I'm glad that I learned that way, the proper way, and actually sitting there and writing out formulas. I come from a very rural area in Mississippi. There's not a lot of opportunities. You either become a cop, you work construction, or you go to the military. I tried college first, didn't work, and after 9/11, I was actually in my barracks room watching the TV when the planes hit the tower. And from that moment on, I knew that I wanted to serve in some capacity. So when I went to boot camp, I was 20. So I was a little older than the average recruit. It wasn't difficult, it was just frustrating. You're gone from home for the first time, no phones, so you're just communicating via letter, back and forth with your family. And they just play with you mind games all day. Once you get out of boot camp, that's when your training really starts. If you sign up to be infantry in the Marine Corps, after boot camp, you go to what they call SOI, School of Infantry. Infantry school is where you really start learning, how the Marine Corps works, how to be tactically proficient, how to do your job, how to get ready for combat. It's more difficult than boot camp because it's a lot more physical and you're out in the field a lot, but you also have more freedoms. You can have your cell phone, you can go off on the weekends. Everybody does the first couple weeks together, basic training, and then they can break you down into infantry specialties, MOS specialties. So you can either be a machine gunner, an assaultman, or mortarman. So I did machine gun course at SOI, and it was difficult. You're humping those big guns, the tripods, all the ammo, with the disassembly and assembly of the guns, and having learned the processes really quick. It was a challenge. And then after infantry school, of course, then you get your orders to your unit. We call it the fleet. And once you get to the fleet, that's when all the fun begins. When I went to the fleet, I went to 1-2, 1st Battalion, 2nd Marines. And it was pretty crazy and surreal checking into the fleet for the first time. The first day when they dropped us off, after we graduated SOI, and they dropped us off at our battalion, it was like The Walking Dead. I mean, guys had just got back from deployment in Iraq. So you've seen guys walking around the barracks with burns, amputees, people on crutches, a lot of disgruntled Marines. It wasn't a good scene to walk into as a young PFC or private. It was a shocker then. I can imagine how it's changed now with there not being an active war going on, but it was an awakening. My first ever deployment, I was a machine gunner. I deployed with the 22nd MU, Marine Expeditionary Unit, and we traveled across the Mediterranean on ship, and we went into Iraq for about 90 days, a little more. As soon as we got in Iraq, a lot of action. By the time my second deployment, I went to sniper school and I was a sniper team leader. My third deployment, I was also a sniper team leader. We went to Iraq and it was in 2009. And then my Afghanistan deployment, 2011, that was my final deployment and one of my most active deployments. Operating as a scout sniper in a combat zone for as many deployments as I did, and as much as a high tempo as our deployment cycles were, you find yourself always living in an elevated sense of alertness, right? It really gets difficult at times to turn that off. I didn't really notice it as much until my latter deployments, when I got a little older too, I think. You've been on high alert, running back-to-back missions in an austere environment with the enemy for 6 months straight. You come home, within a week, now you're back at your kitchen table with your family back home, and you're going right back into daily life. When I noticed it was at night when I go to sleep. When things would get quiet, I wanted my security there with me. Because when I'm asleep in Afghanistan or Iraq, I can go to sleep comfortably knowing that these guys on my team got my back and they got guns. And if anything happens, they're going to wake me up. When it's just you, you feel alone, even if you have a family. You still got your family there with you, but now it's all on you. You're the team leader and you're the only security at home. When I would first get back from some of my deployments, I would go through a phase to where I couldn't sleep hardly at all. The only way I could sleep is if I had a weapon in arm's reach. I would even practice, like going to bed, laying down, reaching and grabbing my gun. All right, yeah, it's right there. Wait, I'm left-handed. I need to turn this way. Wait, I don't like to make sure the trigger's here so I can just pull it up and shoot. And then if I didn't have a gun, it was a knife or something. But I'd always want to have it at arm's reach. And any little sound, in the middle of the night, I would wake up like I was on a mission and immediately grab my weapon, clear the house, walk outside of the house, go all around the house, come back in and go right back to sleep. You write it off as like, oh, this is what adults do. It's what grown men do. They're protecting their family. You hear a sound, you go and look at it, and you go check the house. But the average father at home doesn't need a gun at arm's reach at all times. So that's one thing. And I think that leads into, especially if you've done a career or spent a long amount of time in this type of environment, in this type of job field, it's very hard to transition and turn it off completely. Out of my teams that I deployed with, we never had a sniper KIA'd out of my group. I have multiple friends, snipers from other units that went and deployed with other units that were KIA. The most loss of life that I've experienced throughout my military career is Marines taking their own lives. And I can confidently say that there's at least probably 20 that I've been connected with in some way, whether they were in my battalion, my unit, served with them, knew them. When you're already dealing with transition issues, and you're already dealing with PTSD and depression, and feeling that lack of belonging again, and you're surrounded by death. I personally did suffer from PTSD, and the only way that I was able to address that was finally being able to talk to someone and admit it and reach out for help. I came back from Afghanistan with some injuries. A lot of stuff that I had already been compiling on me. I was slotted for recruiting school, what you call flagged. So at a certain point in your career, the Marine Corps will flag certain individuals to serve in other billets that are on behalf of the Marine Corps. It was almost like I was out of the military now. I had transitioned from being an operating sniper to being a recruiter. And I was now living with my family full time, dealing with the day-to-day family issues and just life issues. I hadn't been used to that. And we weren't used to spending all of our time together either. So we were growing apart. And we were in serious financial trouble. One thing that made it difficult for me on recruiting duty is that at this point in my life, I was not very happy with the Marine Corps and wasn't really a believer. It was difficult for me to sell something I wasn't really fully believing in anymore. Of course, I was proud to be a Marine. I was proud to be a sniper. Proud of everything I did. Proud of our legacy. Proud of everything. But it was a difficult transition. When I got to recruiting duty, there was already word of recruiters having a high rate of taking their own life. Before I arrived, there had been one a couple months before. And then when I was there, my first 6 months, we had 2 or 3 other recruiters take their life. So I was already having these issues. I already knew numerous people that had taken their own life. I already had one of my good friends do it on the phone with me. Everywhere I turned, I was seeing death. And then the final straw was our direct boss took his own life. And there's only 3 of us in this office. So we were tight. I literally kind of had a breakdown and went and told the sergeant major of the recruiting station what was going on. And she said, hey, let's go talk to the CO, and we're going to send you to Wounded Warrior Battalion. Take care of any things that you have you need to take care of, and you can make up your mind if you want to stay in or get out or whatever at this point. So that's what I did. And I relocated, got myself taken care of, dealt with all my demons, got a divorce, and started my whole life over in 2013. Upon my transition out of the Marine Corps, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I'd always wanted to be in law enforcement, but I could see myself going back to my hometown in Mississippi and just dying there. I decided I was going to take a year off professionally before I made any decisions career-wise and just go travel. So I went out to Wyoming, lived out there, worked on a ranch for a little while as a ranch hand and herding cattle and sheep up to the Bighorn Mountains, and did a little bit of everything. Worked for the oil fields. Got my CDL, started driving trucks, hauling sand for oil rigs. And at one point, I realized, okay, you know, mentally I'm fine. I'm ready to start getting a good career. I want a family. My Wounded Warrior case manager had emailed me and said, hey, there's this amazing program in DC that you'd be a great fit for. It's called the Warriors to Workforce Acquisition Program. It's a 3-year paid internship program with the VA that brings you in with a cohort of other wounded vets. You get professional development classes, all the training and certificates you need to be a contracting officer or a procurement specialist for the government, and you also get your bachelor's degree in business. I called, interviewed, got accepted, and moved out to Frederick, Maryland, where the course was, and then finished that course. I met my wife while I was there. I randomly got a call from the president of the Scout Sniper Association at the time, and they had nominations coming up for board of directors, and he was looking for some guys. He asked me if I'd be interested. He's like, but I got at least 5 or 6 emails from people vouching for you, saying that you'd be good. Once he told me that, I'm like, oh, well, I need to take this opportunity to utilize that. And, you know, I've always had a strong natural ability to lead. So I decided I would jump on the board for SSA, and within a couple months, I was offered to be the vice president, COO. The president at the time had to step down, and he offered me to take over as president. We are the only nonprofit association for Marine Scout Snipers in the world. We're established in 1998, and we provide support services for Marine snipers and their families. If you have mental health issues, we have a connection with the VA, who is a physician. You know, attorneys that we can link you up with that can help you with legal issues that you may be going through. You know, out of all the things I've been through, ups and downs, all my combat deployments, the loss of life I've seen and been around, I wouldn't take anything back for what I've been through, because if anything would have changed in any way, I wouldn't have the current life that I have today, with the current family I have today. And truly, I could not imagine myself being in a better position. I would have never imagined growing up when I was a little poor kid in Mississippi having the life and the family that I have now. So I'm very grateful.
Hi, I'm a producer and Authorized account. If you enjoyed this video, then please subscribe and comment with more topics that you'd like us to cover in this series.